Hello, world, and welcome to another episode from Beyond the Matrix. My name is Sarah, and today we're going to be talking about Jupiter, the planet Jupiter, the planet of expansion, the great gaseous giant, and defender of our solar system with his gravitational field. Okay. Jupiter is also known as Zeus and often associated with things like luck. And that's because Jupiter is known as the greater benefic. And you can see Jupiter in the sky, especially last night. Last night, the moon and Jupiter were conjoined in the sign of Aries, you see here. And it looked like Jupiter was inside the mouth of a crescent moon. So it's really beautiful. They should be still near one another tonight. So if you go stargazing, you'll probably be able to see Jupiter very early in the evening. And so it's still very bright amongst the other stars, but it will become very clear just as the moon's coming up before the sun's even completely, before the sunlight's even completely gone. But the first stars out at night are actually planets. So, at least in my experience. So, you'll see Venus now in the evening as well. It might surprise some people that some stars are actually planets, but that's how the ancients observed them. They noticed that these stars were doing something different. So as I've been doing for the week, I'm going to read from Chris Brennan's Hellenistic Astrology, the Study of Fate and Fortune, about the planet Jupiter. So it says, Jupiter, Zeus, the radiant one. The star of Jupiter signifies the begetting of children, childbirth, desire, love, alliances, knowledge, friendship with great men, abundance, payments, large gifts, an abundance of profits, justice, authorities, governments, honors, heads of holy places, arbitration of disputes, trusts, inheritance, brotherhood, fellowship, adoption, confirmation of good things, relief from bad things, release from bonds, freedom, entrustments, wealth, stewardship. Of the parts of the body, he is Lord of the outer thighs, the feet, for which reason it also produces running in athletic contests. Internally, it is the Lord of semen, the womb, the liver, parts on the right side of the body. Of substance, he rules tin. He is of the diurnal sect, gray and mostly white in color and sweet in taste. Yeah, so some of that is not things that I necessarily associate with Jupiter, which is like childbirth. That's interesting. But that is according to Vedius Valens, who was an ancient astrologer. And so it's where we get some of the significations of Jupiter. but there is a sense of lightness to that excerpt when compared, especially to Mars. It's it's much shorter than the excerpt from Mercury because Mercury is so all over the place. So Jupiter is actually a higher perspective of knowledge, where Mercury is buzzing about the trivia. Jupiter has got this big philosophical picture and oftentimes kind of overlooks the small details. So this is why Sagittarius, which is ruled by Jupiter, Sagittarians get this reputation for being a bit clumsy because they're like, Sagittarius rising, I should say, are oftentimes in some sort of way larger than life. And that can be very tall. It can be very stocky. I've met a Sagittarius rising that was tiny, but she had a long ponytail. Just like a mane, like a horse's mane. So, and I'm actually like starting to get very Jupiterian with the way that I'm talking. So that's the thing about Jupiter, is it's larger than life and it can bring in expansion. But however, it can also bring in overindulgence and gluttony. So those are the things that Jupiter, signifies for me. When I see Jupiter in the chart, it's usually going to be something very fortunate. Or when Jupiter's coming around for a transit, it's usually going to be very fortunate. Now, there are things that can hinder Jupiter from being able to grant wishes, such as a malefic planet like Mars or Saturn, or retrograde. So retrograde might seem like the gifts aren't coming in. So let's take a look at what Jupiter is doing for the week. We've got Jupiter here conjoin the moon. The moon's now moving out of the conjunction with Jupiter. And so overnight is when Jupiter and the moon conjoined. And it was in this sign of Aries as far as the zodiacal wheel is concerned. So I want to read about Jupiter and the moon. It sounds really nice. And I'm going to be reading here from Renn Butler's The Archetypal Universe, as I've been doing for the week. It says, a rich and abundant emotional life, feelings of happiness, well-being and contentment, natural kindness and generosity, life supporting human values. In the shadow, feelings of entitlement and excessive needs, the pursuit of material consumption or prestige as substitutes for love, cravings for rich and fatty foods, emotional dramatics in everyday life. I think I read that same excerpt on the moon's episode about Jupiter and the moon because now it's sounding familiar, but it's a good one for this particular transit, especially because it's in Aries. And so that idea of self-entitlement really stands out for Aries. So then what's going to happen with Jupiter as we move through the week? So it's Thursday, it's Thor's Day, another name for Jupiter, king of the gods. It's also something to mention here, actually, while I'm in here, is that sextile to the sun. Jupiter sextile the sun with the moon here. So I'm going to read the excerpt, Jupiter, moon, and adding in the sun. And just to be clear, it's because the sun's at 6 degrees, so that's a sextile to Jupiter and where the moon would have been earlier today. So that sextile presents an opportunity. There's an opportunity here between the energy of the sun and Jupiter and the moon. So the type of opportunity is a positive and expansive nature, an outpouring, vitality, and enthusiasm, grand dramatic flair, feeling of abundance and satisfaction, the joy of living. In the shadow, tendencies towards arrogance or self-righteousness, attitudes of entitlement in many areas of life, habitual excess. Yeah, so I can see the sun is in Aquarius, and Aquarius is the sign of the humanitarian, but also of the black sheep, the isolated one, the one that defines itself by what it is not. And that is to say, like, when an Aquarian approaches a group, this is totally stereotyped, like it's fun and games, it's not real. But with Aquarius, like the idea is that they approach a group and then they're like, I'm not that, I'm not that, I'm not that. Where a Leo, which is the opposite sign to Aquarius, would approach a group and be like, what am I? So that's the difference, is that Aquarius really wants to serve the group for the benefit of the group in innovative and inventive ways, where Leo wants the group to validate it and tell it what it is, essentially. So I say that to describe that the sun is actually in detriment here in Aquarius. The sun is actually far away from home. It's in the opposite sign from its home sign. So we'll get more into that on Sunday. Let's look at Jupiter. All right, so Jupiter isn't going to move very much, but things might move into position to be in aspect with Jupiter. Well, of course, the moon is going to move into sextile and into a square with Jupiter before we reach next Thursday. And that's because Jupiter is here in Aries and the moon is going to move through these 3 houses. And as it does, once it gets into this house, it's called a semi-sextile. Once it gets into this house, it's called a sextile. And once it gets over to here, it's called a square. And I like to remember with how many houses are in between the 2 planets in question. So when Jupiter and the moon are in neighboring houses, it's called a semi-sextile. When Jupiter and the moon, or any planets, are one house away, it's called a sextile. So there'll be a 1 house in between for a sextile. For a square, there will be 2 houses in between. Important to mention, this is for the whole sign house system. This won't work for Placidus. Always. And Jupiter and the moon with 3 houses in between, that would be called a trine. Jupiter and the moon with 4 houses in between would be called an inconjunct or a quincunx. And Jupiter and the moon with 5 houses in between is actually an opposition. So 2, 4, 5. So that's a little bit about aspects, because it looks like the only planets that Jupiter will be making aspects with aren't even planets. They're luminaries. The sun and the moon are going to be the only planets. Luminaries are going to be the only celestial bodies, we could say, that will come into aspect with Jupiter. So there's a message here from Jupiter that's pointing us to the fact that sometimes we can become self-righteous, self-indulgent, and there's an opportunity in seeing the joy in life, being grateful for what's already here, that can help us to avoid that overindulgence and that self-entitled feeling. Gratefulness practices are something that is understated as being a tool for mental health. You can bring your awareness to the things that you have, even if you don't have anything. Trust me, I know. I know what it's like to feel like you have nothing, because I got rid of a lot of things and some things left me. So there's this song that I learned that's a prayer song. And anytime I'm feeling down, I start this song, and you can substitute in anything you like, but it's thank you for this life, spirit. Thank you for this life. Thank you for this life, spirit. Thank you for this life. It's beautiful, it's powerful, this sacred life. It's beautiful, it's powerful, this sacred life. Thank you for my car, spirit. Thank you for my car. Thank you for my car, spirit. Thank you for my car. It's beautiful, it's powerful, this sacred car. It's beautiful, it's powerful, this sacred car. And you can do it for anything. I do it for my coffee in the morning. I do it for my camper. I do it for all the things, like my family, of course. I mean, sometimes though, it's like, duh, about family or about things that you feel like you should be grateful for. And so it's nice to just substitute in little things, my candle, my incense, my water. And I know water's not a little thing, but it's something that we take for granted. And so it's important to consider those things because they don't stay in our consciousness when it becomes so regular to have things. And that that life could be so much worse than it is. Always, always, even when we hit rock bottom, we can find one thing to be grateful for, and that's our breath. You breathe. So, and for those that have trouble breathing, your heartbeat, something, there's always something to be grateful for. And that can deter you from self-entitlement, from feeling like you need to indulge in something. Because oftentimes when we move to our indulgences, the drugs, and I mean sugar, alcohol, weed, all of it, we go to those things because we get disappointed. We feel like, oh, I've done so much work this week that I deserve this. I've been on a diet so long, I deserve this. And that's coming from a place of not being grateful for what you have. Thank God I have a job so that I get to work all week, whatever. I don't say that, but I wouldn't go that far because I don't have a traditional kind of job and I don't want one. So thank God for the job that I get to have and thank God for the life that I get to live, because a lot of people do have to go to work in order to just survive. So I'm very fortunate in that I have family that's willing to look after me, at least to keep me afloat during this strange time in my life of exploration in true Jupiterian spirit, because the things that I do, I philosophize, I learn. Higher education is something that Jupiter is associated with too. So this has been somewhat of a Jupiterian period of my life. I would love to incorporate the foreign travel part of that, because of course Jupiter is how we're expanding in the world. And that can be expansion of the mind, expansion of where we go. So with all that being said about Jupiter, wasn't very long. Maybe I'll read one more excerpt from Renn Butler's The Archetypal Universe to better describe Jupiter, and especially Jupiter with the moon, because that's going to be the only object that Jupiter is going to be in aspect with this week, with the exception of the sun. So it says here for characters and themes: feelings of happiness and well-being, satisfaction and contentment, natural kindness and generosity, urges to give and receive, nurture, life supporting and enhancing human values, one's personal code of ethics, feelings as truth, qualities of tolerance and acceptance, an open-hearted appreciation of and concern for others. Quote, the critical responsibility for the generation you're in is to help provide the shoulders, the direction, and support for those generations who come behind. Gloria Dean Randall Scott. The nourishing feminine, the earth mother or father, the good instincts of natural parents, feelings of domestic well-being, the big or grand household, the open door or generous home, positive values and culture in one's home life, family ethics, the values of a community, feelings of synergy, cooperative living, a rich experience of community, spaceship Earth, the mythologies of family, community, country, or race, ample flesh and voluptuousness, full incarnational embodiment. Voluptuous is a great word for Jupiter, especially with the moon. So I'm already feeling a lot lighter this morning. I was kind of getting overwhelmed with a lot of things I have to do because of this channeling of Jupiter. So I hope that it is helpful for you as well. It looks really nice for Jupiter all week. Of course, now I should mention that squares are a bit more conflicting than the rest of the aspects that Jupiter will be making. So Jupiter in a square to the moon really might highlight some of those shadow aspects, especially because the moon's going to be in her home sign of Cancer, where she's really comfortable and maybe she just wants a blanket and some soup. And so a square between Jupiter and the moon can be something like Jupiter wants to expand and move out into this world and grow. And especially in the sign of Aries, this fire sign, it's got a fire under to become greater. And so, okay, so you can hear the self-entitlement in that, or how you can veer into overindulgent self-entitlement, where the moon is really concerned with the feelings and the emotions, and especially in the sign of Cancer, she just wants to curl up in her shell on her couch and watch movies, nostalgic movies. So that's the square here, that difficult aspect, because it's of the nature of Mars. So there can be some combativeness between these two energies. And this will be coming up next Thursday. You know, it doesn't happen on the exact day, but this is just kind of energy that we're working with. So something to consider, something to be mindful of. And yeah, other than that, Jupiter's got pretty smooth sailing with beautiful, harmonious aspects of opportunities. And that's with the sun and the moon. So yeah, I hope that this video has been helpful. And I will be back tomorrow for Venus's day. And we'll discuss Venus and what she's got coming up for the week. So until then, have a great Thursday.